Sunshines, welcome back to Macros 101. Last week I went over a general overview of all of the macronutrients, and then this week we're going to start diving into them more individually and more in depth. So this week is carbohydrates. We already know that macronutrients provide fuel for energy production. So we talked about how basically all of these macronutrients, they have to do with energy and basically body maintenance, maintaining body temperature. They do work on a molecular level to make all of this happen for us. So they're transferring energy, they're doing stuff. There's a lot that goes into it. And when it comes to carbohydrates, I go off of the American College of Sports Medicine. Their guideline is 6 to 10 grams of carbs per pound of body weight. So a couple of cool pointers about carbohydrates are that they are quick energy sources. So they're really quick. It's one of those first things that your body might grab to burn for energy. And then they also assist in burning fats. So they help out with that whole process. When carbs are stored for energy, they are stored as glycogen, and then that can easily be converted into glucose to be used for energy. So it's really cool that there's like a quick source there for you. You may already know this, but there are a few different ways to break down carbohydrates. Most commonly, you might hear simple and complex carbohydrates. Simple are more your sugars. You'll notice them nested under like carbohydrates on your nutrition label. And there's a variety of those. And then you have complex, which are a little more difficult to break down. Some of them can't even be digested, but some can, but they're just more difficult to digest. Carbohydrates are important because if you don't have enough of them, it can lead to like exhaustion, mental fatigue, crazy stuff that you just want to avoid. And I know that low carb diets and keto and all this stuff is like really trendy right now, but it's like, it doesn't make sense in the long term, at least not to me. It can to you and some people. I believe from what I learned in like my neuroscience course back in the day, there was a reason that some people have to be on a diet that's like keto, but for the general population that doesn't work over a long period of time. It's not really good for you over a long period of time. It's just kind of a tool I feel like people have been using to lose weight at at least quickly, because it shows quickly. There's a variety of reasons why it works, but anyways, that's just my view. I support you if that's what works for you, but for me, I don't see that it's necessary. I'd rather be able to have a variety in my diet and like have my cookies and not have to worry about like going out of that ketosis state. To avoid ketosis, you would want to eat at least a minimum of about 50 to 100 grams of carbs a day. Most Americans eat more than that very easily. Carbs are everywhere. So it is very hard to even reach that state because you have to be tracking those numbers. And then every body is different, so the rules kind of vary, but everything I'm giving you here is just general guidelines. When engaging in physical activity, the higher intensity the activity, the higher percentage of your energy comes from carbohydrates, and that's just a general idea and rule. However, you can do lower intensity activity and kind of find a balance. That's the idea, is that like you will need more energy from carbohydrates with that low intensity activity over time, because you can do that for longer. Whereas like sprinting, you're going to use a higher amount of energy from carbs, but over time, like it will balance out more because you're not going to go for that sprinting or like intense running for as long as you might like a brisk walk. I don't know how much you guys want me to go into things like fiber and more of the sugars, so let me know, because fiber is also nested, I don't know, under carbohydrates on a lot of nutrition labels. One of the biggest points I wanted to make today was about how these all play into even brain function, because that's a big motivator for me, and maybe for you too. But I remember when I was younger and I learned about health and fitness, a lot of the time people would talk about the glycemic index, and I never understood why that was important until actually doing research. So the glycemic index is basically just a tool to help measure how carbohydrates affect your blood sugar levels. If a food ranks lower on the glycemic index, it's generally considered to help you maintain your blood sugar levels, and then those that are higher kind of can make things a little wacky. But again, it's one of those things where everybody's different, so those who engage in a lot of high intensity activities might be more tolerant to foods that are higher on that scale. Foods that generally rank higher on that glycemic index are the ones that you might hear people say not so nice things about, like sugar, white breads, bagels, basically everything that tastes delicious, sugar. Some foods that you might find in the middle of the glycemic index are fruits that maybe are higher in sugar, like bananas and grapes, things like oatmeal. Low on the glycemic index is just lower sugar fruits like apples, some of the beans, same thing, same idea. I'm just gonna roll with sugar is the main determining factor in this, because that's like the pattern I see. And then finally, we'll talk about this in strategies for balancing your macros, but just how it affects your brain. You do need to maintain like healthy glucose levels to have great brain function, because glucose affects the central nervous system, and that's important. So if you want to maintain healthy brain function, you still gotta eat some stuff, and it is generally recommended, and it's worked best for me, that you eat just a few, like multiple small meals per day, rather than avoiding food. But we'll talk more about that, because different things work for different people, but there are benefits to eating like more meals during the day than like waiting all day to have one meal. But some people, intermittent fasting is like their jam. It works really well for them. That's how they prefer to eat. My body's on a whole different level. So I'll talk about that in future videos. I don't want to keep these videos so long that you're getting bored and you're like, I just already know all of this stuff. So I try to include like a variety of research. If you do want more in-depth learning about any other of the topics that were kind of discussed, let me know. Most of these things are fairly simple. Like nutrition can be very simple when you just like look into it, even though there's obviously a more complex scientific situation happening underneath the simplicity that I just shared with you. I hope you liked learning about carbohydrates. Next week I think I will do proteins and fats. I might just do them together. If you enjoyed this video, learned anything new, want to see more, please feel free to subscribe. Me and my husband both are trying to put out at least one video per week through the year of 2019. So that should be a really exciting challenge, so they will keep coming.